Evil Mamabear is dead. But not before she tried to sue me for grandparents' rights, by user Craggle Tom. Before anyone comments it, please know ding dong the witch is dead. This woman may have been rotten to the core. But she was still my mother. And I'd like to just move on and forget now that she's passed away. I've got too much else to worry about in life than dealing with memories of EMB anyway. Also, EMB is the acronym for Evil Mamabear, just in case any new readers were wondering. To start things off, not too long after EMB finally moved away, my girlfriend suddenly gave me an ultimatum. And that was that I seriously get therapy, or she might leave me. She'd held off on that until after EMB left, and insisted that I couldn't drag my feet anymore. She said I needed to put an end to the obsession I had with getting back at my insane narcissist mother for trying to ruin my childhood. I finally agreed to the therapy. It was good at first. I even had the therapist laughing at some of my stories. And they even admitted it would have been hard for them not to do the same things to EMB, were they in my shoes. I was given a mostly clean bill of mental health after a while, despite the issue with EMB's flying monkey nosy Nancy. Things should have been fine. Till my girlfriend suddenly told me she was pregnant. We're not sure how it happened. I used protection, but we did have one rib. We thought it'd be fine because she was on the pill. I was in a complete panic at first, and she walked out on me for a while because of it. But I apologized and resolved to become a great parent. I made sure she knew I was 100% committed to being a father and a husband, if she was willing. We had a pretty short engagement and got married in a courthouse. Neither of us felt like a big wedding. And the honeymoon was postponed due to her pregnancy and our respective careers. When we eventually learned the gender of our unborn child through ultrasound, we found out we were having a girl. I was elated. My wife was elated. But EMB was stalking the family's social media, and a few of my relatives posted about my upcoming daughter. Suddenly my lawyer got a request from EMB asking that I drop the restraining order. Although the narcissistic tearjerker of a letter EMB wrote and sent was pretty cringy. I wasn't allowed to see the letter at the time, because it'd be a breach of the RO. My lawyer could only give me a very vague summary. But after EMB died, the RO was null and void. So I could finally view it. And I'll write it out for you all. EMB's letter, to my only son Craggle. I know we've had our differences. But for the sake of my future granddaughter, please lift the restraining order. I miss having family so very much. And I couldn't imagine never being in my new baby's life. She's not even born yet, and I already want to take her into my arms and just never share her with anyone. I just know she'll be such a perfect beautiful little girl, because she has my genes in her. Please let me see her. She'll never grow up right if I'm not there for my baby. And if I'm not allowed to see her, I just know I'd never be able to live. I know you'll do the right thing. You have to. Because I am the matriarch. And you won't keep me away. I've already given up on your sister. She married a man I could never see as my son-in-law, and refused to see reason. But you have redeemed yourself by marrying a beautiful white woman, and giving me the granddaughter I always wanted. I just know my baby will be perfect. Love and kisses, EMB. So that's what she wrote. Creepy, unhinged, and she repeatedly referred to my daughter as my baby, like she was completely forgetting the baby was not hers. My lawyer asked me how we should respond to her request about the RO. I told him he already knew exactly what I'd say. So to just go ahead and say it. And he did, with much enthusiasm. But that incident sent my stress about EMB right back up, and basically ruined months of progress with my therapist. EMB had a weird obsession with girls related to her, and hates boys in general. And now that my wife and I were having a daughter, she had zeroed in on us with a telescope, or maybe a sniper rifle. She wouldn't even acknowledge her grandson, my nephew. But the second she found out that me, the son she always treated like absolute garbage, was having a daughter with my wife. Well, her baby rabies kicked into mega overdrive. When I didn't lift the RO, EMB resorted to calling me directly at work from the company landline. She was crying and begging me to lift the restraining order, because she wanted to know her future granddaughter. I told her my unborn daughter was not her grandchild. I'd disowned her as a mother, just like my sister had. And my daughter will never know her as a grandmother. She doesn't deserve it. Not after what she's done. She started to screech at me that I could not do this to her. And that I was denying her rights as a grandmother and matriarch. I told her she was insane to think she was a matriarch, and then hung up. But she called right back, twice. She possibly didn't know, but all calls on the company landline are recorded. So I had the recordings and the call logs sent to my lawyer, and told him to release the hounds. EMB was arrested for violating the RO. This time I was happy to get her arrested, because she no longer lives around here. I held back before the other times she violated the RO, because any more arrests could have potentially delayed her moving away. But that wasn't the case anymore. EMB got arrested, and somehow actually spent some time in jail, just for those phone calls violating the RO. I half expected her to get off lightly with her feeble old lady routine or something. But damn! The law don't mess around in Texas. My daughter was born a few months later. She's very healthy, and growing well. My wife doesn't want me posting any key details about her, and I'm respecting that. Also, for those who kept telling me to sell my house before in comments of my previous posts, I still won't. This is a great house, and was my dad's house. I couldn't bear to part with it. Not to mention I refuse to be any farther away from the company I inherited from my dad. As for EMB, well, she got a lawyer and filed a grandparents' rights lawsuit against me as soon as she was out of jail. She actually said that I was going to be a horrible parent to a little girl, and I couldn't be trusted without her guidance. And though we never actually got direct confirmation if it was her, we know it had to be EMB who repeatedly called CPS on us. CPS came to see us with an attitude like they were expecting the worst. But they were impressed by my house and the nursery. And they determined everything said was false. But they still showed up again after getting more anonymous reports. They investigated again, found nothing again, complimented my home again. They couldn't tell me it was EMB. But I know it was her that made the false reports. Who else would it be? CPS ended up knocking one more time. But by the third time, they were just going through the motions because they had to follow up. We were completely cooperative, my daughter was healthy, the house was immaculate. There was literally nothing that CPS would consider a problem. EMB's case for grandparents' rights was easily denied. The judge took one look at all the details of her prior history, and said she had no case. Not only because of my RO against her, but also because she had no prior relationship with my daughter. Plus there was also the fact that EMB was openly a misandrist, and was a racist toward my brother-in-law. And the record of when my lawyer had EMB sign a contract to keep her away from my sister. Said contract also prevented any grandparents' rights to any of my sister's current and future children. And then there was the false reports to CPS, which EMB was the most likely culprit of doing. On top of that, I had a shit ton of details on what EMB had done to me over the course of my life. And how I keep gnomes pretty much everywhere because she's so afraid of them, she won't come near. There was so much evidence and detail we had against EMB that any sane judge would realize in an instant EMB was not grandma material. That should have been it. But EMB filed an appeal. It was denied. So she tried to file another appeal on the basis of Texas law, instead of my state's law. Said appeal was also denied because I and my family are not residents of Texas. Nor do we plan to ever be. Whatever lawyer EMB had found to help her, was likely just using her for a paycheck. Because even an idiot could see the case was doomed to fail from the start when an RO was involved. So what does EMB decide it's a good idea to do? She called me again. This time to spit the worst kind of venom she could at me. She sounded very intoxicated, and the stuff she was accusing me of. Well, it was very clear she'd completely lost touch with reality. She was accusing me of downright heinous things that never happened. She claimed I beat her all the time, and that I'll likely beat my own wife and child too. She said I stole money from her and my sister, claimed I was somehow stalking her in Texas, and she even accused me of SA towards her, which I will not go into detail about. But let's just say the very thought of the things she was believing in her own head made me want to vomit. She claimed I was a monster, and she was terrified of me. If that were true, I doubt she'd have called me like that. Making me the bad guy in her head must have been one of the only ways she had left to mentally function. But we found out later she was also on very hard drugs. So she was probably badly both intoxicated and inebriated when she called me. You can bet I had my lawyer sick Texas police on her again. We notified APS too, since EMB seemed in a state that was dangerous to herself and others. But she wasn't at her home in Texas. Police had no idea where she was. They couldn't find her anywhere. She'd gone off the grid. I was worried she was hiding somewhere nearby and stalking us. Knowing EMB, she was possibly prepared to do something absolutely insane. So I sent my wife and daughter to her parents' house, and my sister and Bil went to his parents' house for a while. We were expecting the worst. Till a few weeks later, someone dumped off EMB in front of a hospital nowhere near us. She'd OD'd badly on a cocktail of drugs and alcohol. She was brought in for emergency treatment. But there was no saving her. She was dead before they could do much of anything. We found out her liver was already failing, and her body was rather thin from heavy drinking and malnutrition, which likely contributed to her mental instability. But there was a cocktail of hard drugs in her system too. I think she was just ready to die. As if for some final fuck you, EMB's will actually demanded that I, as the elder of her 2 children, be the one to handle her funeral. She knew I'd hate doing that. But I did it, just so my sister wouldn't have to. And no, EMB had no life insurance. Though I'm not sure it would have paid out under the circumstances if she did. Not very many relatives showed up for the funeral. Not even the flying monkey Nosy Nancy, even though my lawyer sent her the funeral info. But just to be petty, I had the funeral in my backyard, with gnomes all around EMB's urn. EMB had no grave prepared either. And neither my sister or I wanted to look for one for her. We certainly didn't want her buried near our dad. So we mutually decided EMB's urn would go to my sister to do what she wanted with it. EMB's will, as completely expected, was vaguely worded and gave everything she had to my sister, aside from the money allotted for her funeral. Not that I wanted anything from her. The will was years old. EMB hadn't bothered to update it since before my sister met her husband. But it also meant my sister not only inherited EMB's money, but also her new house in Texas. We went to see it, and it was a brand new double-wide manufactured home. Not bad as a retirement house. And no surprise, EMB had it well furnished. There was some debate on what to do with the house. Sell the property, rent it out, or live in it. It was a hard choice for my sister since it was a nice house. But ultimately she and her husband decided to sell it. They did not want to move that far away, and they did not want to manage the property long distance as landlords either. So they sold it. But not before secretly burying EMB's urn somewhere on the property, which spans a couple dozen acres. I guess it's fitting her remains stayed on her old family land. Let's hope nobody comes along with a metal detector. But my sister, in one last act of glorious pettiness, put a small gnome toy in the urn with EMB's ashes before burial. I just about fell over busting a gut when she told me she did that. For my sister, even after taxes, the money from the sale, and the money she'd inherited from EMB was more than enough for her and her husband to buy a house locally. At one time they called me saying they were looking at a house in Anhoa. I told them hell no, it's not a good idea. I've seen enough horror about HOAS on Reddit, and warned Sis and BIL to steer clear of them. And they listened. They settled on a nice 4-bedroomed house that was built in the 80s and remodeled a few years prior. They're very comfortable there. But they did have to replace the water heater. I came in to help, as I'd done it before with a friend. Other than that, they've had no problem with the house, other than baby-proofing it for my nephew. There ended up being a few small loose ends. Like EMB owing some minor credit debt, inheritance taxes, and EMB's car was missing. It'd been stolen around the time EMB died, and was eventually found wrecked near the border to Mexico with a lot of parts stolen off of it. None of us would have wanted that car anyway. So off to the scrapyard it went. Pretty much all of EMB's possessions were sold with the house. None of us wanted any of it. And selling the house fully furnished added to its appeal. If there's anything I'd have to begrudgingly admit about my mother, it's that she had good taste in furniture, and how to arrange it. Well, she can arrange the devil's furniture now. I'm still in therapy, and probably will be for a while. But my marriage is going well, and I'm happy. So I guess this completely ends everything with evil Mamabear. She's dead, and there's no more need to speak of her. So now, finally and assuredly, this is likely my last post about her, unless something she's done comes back to bite us from beyond the grave. Thanks everyone for reading. I know it was a lot. P.S. For those wondering about the gnome thing, see this post link. Edit. Fixed some errors. Second update, entitled Mom Hits My Car, by user no_departure102. Previous story for context, https://www.reddit.com/r/entitledparents/s/oi7bulletin w3tf. Sorry that I haven't updated y'all on this since it's been a few days. So I went to court and won the case. She was ordered by the judge to spend 3 months in jail since this was a repeat offense. My state has some of the strictest driving laws in the country. Judge also ruled that she to give me $10,000 in damages once she's out. Now I found out more about stuff that happened from the police. After they arrested her, she apparently lied to the police because it turns out there were cameras at the intersection where this thing happened. So on top of endangering my safety, her safety, the safety of her 2 children, running off, driving without insurance etc., she also tried to put the blame on me. I was furious when I found this out. Her 2 kids are now in the custody of their father. Sounds like they were divorced. Honestly, it seems like they should have been in his custody in the first place. I'm not expecting her to pay the money obviously, as she lost her job it sounds like. So while this isn't the completely happy ending to this story that I wanted, it's still something. And for those of you wondering about the car, thankfully I come from a family that is fortunate enough to be able to pay for the damages. I had to wait about 2 weeks, but the good news is that the car wasn't totaled and it looks even better than before. Moral of the story, don't text and drive and be a repeat offender of it. Entitled Mom kicks my little brother out of a house that isn't hers at 3 a.m, by user befriending localcats. It is currently 4 a.m. while I'm typing this, and I can't believe that I'm typing this, because this is genuinely insane. Just before we get started, I have to say the obligatory English is not my first language. Okay, so, I, F19, am the older sister to a really dumb, but well-intentioned kid, M16, who we'll call Jake for the sake of this story. Today, Jake was supposed to go to a party at a friend's house. It might have been a birthday party, but I'm not entirely sure, and subsequently sleep over. As you know, kids can be dumb, and many were drinking, including Jake's friend. Apparently, birthday boy drank so much he passed out, but that's neither here nor there. Someone's mom came to pick her kid up. This is the entitled mom of the story. As is customary, we'll call her Karen, and so the shit show began. Karen went to get her kid, and saw Jake and his friends still at the house. This was around 3:30 a.m, which is way past our curfew. This is relevant, I promise. Karen starts freaking out, and the dialogue below ensues, which has been kindly translated from Spanish, and built from the bits and pieces I could gather out of my frantic and tired little brother by yours truly. Karen, what are you guys still doing here? It's late. Jake, oh hi Auntie Karen. We're all supposed to sleep over. Karen, well, it's late, you guys should head home. Friend 1, Auntie, we can't, we're all supposed to be here, our parents are asleep. Friend 2, yeah, my mom will probably freak out. Karen, well, I see the birthday boy is asleep, you can't sleep over if he's asleep. You guys have to head home. Jake, it's fine Auntie, we all have permission to be here. Karen, no, I'm the adult here, and you have to listen to me. I won't leave until all of you leave. Did I make myself clear? Jake, yes Auntie. And so, my underage brother and his friends have been effectively kicked out of their friend's house by some crazy auntie who believes she's entitled to do so. They all prepare to leave and start making arrangements on how they'll go about it. Jake isn't too worried, even if he doesn't have house keys on him at that moment. My dad is a bit of an insomniac, and he's usually awake at this time. My dad also trusts him enough with his car keys, so he does have a way to get home. He was getting out his car, when suddenly he hears a voice. Karen, young man, what do you think you're doing? Jake, hey Auntie, I'm driving home. Karen, well, you can't do that. All of you are obviously drunk and you can't drive. I'm the adult here and you have to listen to me. For the record, my brother was the furthest thing from drunk. Maybe his friends were, but he really wasn't. Anyways, he keeps trying to argue, but at some point he decides it's just not worth it and decides to get a ride with one of his other friends that was also kicked out. A very similar conversation took place, with the auntie accusing his friends of being drunk too, of not being able to drive home in the state they were in, and demanding that they listen to her because she's an adult. God knows how, but my little brother managed to get home safely. I tried asking him about it, but he was kind of frantic. I assume he got a ride, because walking home at this hour in my city is stupidly dangerous, even for small distances. Anyways, he managed to open the front gate. It can be opened manually since it's broken RN, but he realized the doors were locked, and that Dad was most likely asleep at this point, which would have been unusual if it wasn't for the fact that he had just gotten home from a Christmas party, and was probably really tired. Jake decided to call Mom, Bless the fact she's a light sleeper, which was irrelevant here since she didn't pick up. He tried Dad, who also didn't pick up as well. At this point, Jake panics. He doesn't know the landline number, he's running out of battery, and decides to throw one last Hail Mary at being able to sleep in a warm bed. He sees my light is still on, and calls me. Jake, Ash, are you awake? Me, yeah, what's going on? Jake, I need you to open the door, it's locked. Me, thinking he had the car, and not understanding what's going on. Oh yeah, the gate is broken, remember? You have to open it manually. Wait, why are you coming home so late? Dad's gonna be pissed. Jake, no Ash, you don't understand. It's locked. Just open the door please, I'll explain in a second. Me, still not understanding what in the fresh hell was going on. Wait, we can lock the gate? How is that possible? Jake, no Ash, the gate isn't locked. That's not the problem. The front door is locked and I don't have keys, and the alarm system is on. Can you please disable it so I can come inside? Me, okay, but if Mom or Dad hears and they're mad, this is on you. I went downstairs, really confused because he had never gotten home so late. The latest our curfew can be is usually 2 to 2:30 am, and this was almost 4 am. As I mentioned, my father is a bit of an insomniac too, so he usually waits for us too. Needless to say, I was extremely baffled by the situation. That at least until he explained what happened. Honestly, I'm tired of people doing this, I've been through similar stuff tbh. I'll update if anything happens tomorrow, but right now I need some sleep. Good night everyone. M says I'm too hot to do my job and wants me fired, by user 21_averages. Hi, so I'm here again, and my last post felt like some weight off my chest and I was reliving the story with my boss and we were just sharing stories about crazy parents. For those of you that missed my last post, it was a relatively short one about my job as a youth club worker and how a grown-ass woman decided to swear at some little girls for bullying her baby even though we had witnesses to the contrary. Anyway, boss told me this story because I wasn't, entirely, present for this to happen. All names are changed but let's get to our cast. OP, hey that's me, early 20s male and pretty carefree, just love having fun with kids who are getting to do things I loved doing when I was their age, now I sound old lol. Boss, chill guy, who cares about his workers and cares even more about kids. Long temper but low tolerance for bullshit. TG, teenaged girl, comes to our clubs and is often mentored by me and other members of staff. RD, reasonable dad, I have no idea how he's married to this woman if I'm honest. M, the one you've all been waiting for, TG's mother and the Karen of this story. Ethnically diverse but speaks a language that she must not have expected me to speak. So let me set the scene for you all once again. I'm helping with a youth club in my city and my boss has received some funding to take all the kids, about 13 to 17 years old, on a camping trip. The kids lost their minds at this because we live in a big city and most have never been outside of it for any reason. Safe to say they were pumped. When this was announced I told them all to have fun and my boss shot me a puzzled look. Boss, what do you mean? OP, I just assumed since I was too young that. Boss is laughing and tells me that he already cleared everything with the camp organizer and there's no age limit on staff so I could go. Not only was I excited because well, but also because I like spending time with this batch of kids and knew it was going to be a lot of fun. But then I see TG sat on a table in a huff, texting alone on her phone. I walk up to her and ask her what's wrong. TG, I'm glad you're going, I might not be able to. OP, why would you not be able to? TG, M says that I may not be able to go because she doesn't know you guys. I have a think and remember that it usually takes a couple hours for us to leave the building after the club hours are over, cleaning and packing down electronics, all that stuff. I call out to boss and ask if M could pay us a visit so she can meet us all and boss says it shouldn't be a problem. TG is beaming at this because there was no way she was gonna miss out on this. A couple hours after that, the kids are sent home with their permission sheets and TG goes out and promises to return with M in 10 minutes. Surely enough she comes in, eyeing up our little club with a little bit too much disgust on her face for my liking. M, TG, and boss go into his office to discuss the trip and I'm moving boxes. One by one all my colleagues go in to meet her and introduce themselves and this is where the perspective shifts because this is what my boss told me happened. M, pointing at me, why is that boy here so late? Does he not have parents? Boss, laughing and turns around but quickly becomes confused. Wait, who? Him, out there with the box in his hand. TG, oh that's OP. Boss, yeah I can't believe I forgot him. Boss gets up, opens the door and yells to me from the other side of the club. Boss, yo OP, come meet M. I put down the box and quickly ran over to join them. I came in and shook M's hand. OP, hi, M, it's nice to meet you. M, a little confused. Same, who are you? Boss, OP is one of the more popular members of our team, got him just a couple years ago now. OP, yeah and your daughter's in my mentorship program, she's quite talented. Wait seriously? Boss, it's true, he's really helped TG come out of her shell. TG, can you stop talking about me like I'm not here? OP, laughing yeah, but I'm looking forward to this trip and can guarantee your daughter's in the best hands. I saw that and leave, and this is again the end of what I thought was a very successful interaction and go back to cleaning. Unbeknownst to me, this is the conversation that takes place. I'm sorry but I'm afraid I'll be unable to allow my daughter to go on this trip with you. TG, seriously? Boss, miss, is there a reason why? Of course. That boy outside is the problem. He's way too young to be working here and I will not sit by and let him groom my daughter in the woods for days on end. Boss is apparently shocked and so is TG, and silence falls over the room before it's stopped by TG. TG, Mom, OP would never do that. Boss, your daughter is right. OP has never once acted unprofessional in the years he's been with us and had no other incident reports from his previous employer. I can personally guarantee your daughter's safety. I don't care, I've seen the types of boys my daughter likes to sneak around with and he is the spitting image of one of them. I want him off the trip and out the club or my daughter will not be returning. Boss is again shocked and apparently him and TG share a look of your mom is nuts and a shrug between them. And TG then begin speaking in their mother tongue, which my boss did not know but I did. When he told me this story, I was able to piece together what was said and this was the conversation. TG, Mom. I want to go, OP is safe, I am safe. No. I am your mother, you will not be around that pretty boy bastard alone. Before TH could reply, then apologizes to boss for wasting his time and they both leave in a huff with TG crying out something about her dad. She shot me a glance before leaving and I was confused, so I asked boss walked into the office. OP, what happened? Boss, sighs honestly OP, I haven't got a clue. 30 minutes later TG runs back in with a signed permission sheet and we're all confused because while boss never told us the specifics he did say it looked like TG couldn't make it. Boss, how? RD, hey there, sorry about my wife, she can be a handful. TG, everyone this is my dad, this is everyone. He shook hands with everyone and complimented our little setup. Before getting to me. RD, you must be OP, you the one that's teaching my little girl to not be so lazy all the time? I laugh and assure him that I'm trying my best but his daughter can be a piece of work. TG did end up coming with us and everyone else had a wonderful time. I never saw M again and boss only told me this story a couple days ago at the monthly staff drinks and we all had a laugh. If by some grace of Satan M is reading this, let me ask you to please be mindful of the people who take care of your kid free of charge. Why do I have a feeling the nickname Pretty Boy is going to stick around? My girlfriend has already begun to bully me with it, after vowing to rip M's head off. Mum might cost me my job, by username Satan. To begin, this is currently ongoing issue. I am, 28M, and I work in animation, I'm a SFX supervisor and clean-up artist, on occasion I get to deal with known voice actors some of which are very famous, and it is my dream job. I love my job and have been in the industry going on 4 years starting and doing contract work for the company I know work for. Well, about 6 months ago my mum, who owns a business, the only employees being her and my grandmother, began to inform me that a friend of hers has a daughter whom is a fan of the show I work on and made it abundantly clear she wants me to get signatures from both the staff and voice actors so she can invite her friend to her business and gift the daughter this card on top of me having to purchase a gift to go with it. For context, I am under the impression that the daughter of the other woman is unaware of the proceedings, and the other woman had not requested. I have never met either of them. This is strictly my mother feeling entitled to signatures and a service that, my industry has etiquette and channels to do, but not in the fashion she desired, leading to my current predicament. For those who are unaware, asking for signatures from an individual is not an issue out in public or in a non-work environment, even sometimes in a work environment. This changes when the signatures that are being demanded by an outside force, and the signatures in question belong to behind-the-scenes staff, animators, creative directors, the CEO, audio engineers, storyboard artist, ECT, and the voice talent who are often sourced from a secondary company that has its own contracts. My contract has a few points that roughly translate to don't harass the celebrities for autographs, the solicitation of autographs, and sale of autographs outside the company will lead to immediate termination, and if you are to request an autograph it needs to be for you or a direct family member and to go through the proper channels to not cause an issue with the talent agency the celebrity belongs to. So, into the story, my mother got this idea in her head to have me get this girl a sketch book with a series of signatures of people who work on the show. Then I was to have it sent to her store so she could give it to this girl. I informed her multiple times that not only could I not get the signatures, but I was fairly certain there was contractual reasons I couldn't ask. 6 months of being hounded on the matter and I break down and jump the gun and ask the boss. The boss got back to me on the 28th of last month, November, and said they would sign off on it with 2 changes to my mum's plan were made. I agreed, thinking it would not be hard to change my mother's mind if this was indeed to be for a fan, and went about telling my boss, company CEO, creative lead, and one of the nicest people I have ever met. I already had ordered the sketchbook, and sought permission to hand the card and the book to the girl. Which the boss said it wouldn't be a problem, we just got to let the talent agency and EntitledParents studio know what's going on, it should be easy. So, on the 3rd of this month, December, the book arrived, and the studio had turned this into a mini project that they were very excited for and even sought out the voice actors who signed and left personalized messages, and everyone was excited to not only send the card, but also to hear how excited we made a fan. I called my mum and told her that the team had a few more signatures to get, and the book arrived. Well, think of the response that you would expect. Okay, you got it. It is wrong. I was immediately cursed out because the purpose of ordering the book was that it would have the signatures in it, and that we, my team and I, are all complete idiots and making her look like an asshole, which I told her then I should just cancel the project, because this seems like it's more about her ego than to do something for a fan. This made the arguing worse. Small aside again about my mother is when she is mad, explanations do not exist and whatever you say is either not going to be heard or is a lie despite the evidence. So, no matter how much I tried to explain the change in plans or the conditions, this was not going to work. I get in contact with the individual that made this their personal job to oversee this goes smoothly, and told him about the displeasure my mother had in how we handled the issue, while I was still heated after having to endure a raging Karen that had done nothing to get this project off the ground outside of making promises to her friend before I even agreed. This started a chain reaction at work of people not only not wanting to work on the project but actively requesting the removal of their names from the card. At this time the boss had left work to go on a month-long sabbatical to deal with the stress they were under, and in my opinion, the disorganization of the studio due to this led us to where we are now. Our parent studio had launched an investigation into the project from what I could understand second and third-hand individuals. On the 10th, December, I was informed I was to talk to HR about the incident, and as a relatively young company and with our acting CEO being inexperienced in the role, lead to possibly the most disorganized HR meeting I have ever dealt with, leading to no real idea what I was in trouble for, but I might lose my job over it. Luckily, the next day, under preview of a lawyer and HR representatives from our more experienced parent company, I was informed I was being investigated for running a smuggling ring. I was told this was the closest term that could be assigned to the crime. And as I'm writing this, am sitting on a 1-week unpaid administrative leave, while they are looking into the incident and verifying my account of events and mountain of screenshots and evidence explaining my side of the story. I ask you once again to think how a parent would respond to their child nearly losing their job to do something for them, or even potentially losing their dream job. If you were paying attention, you would know how my mother had acted. Immediately claiming I never worked for the company, that she is the victim and she has never been more embarrassed, proceeding to send me photos of the message she sent to the girl's mother, explaining how she couldn't make it happen, and she is the one who is embarrassed, outraged, and that once again we, this time the entire company, are all idiots. In the message the girl is only mentioned once while her embarrassment, pride, and ego were mentioned no less than 6 times. But we are not done. My grandmother was dragged into the drama both on my mother's and my part. On my part because I moved in with my grandmother to make sure she is taken care of while her health is largely unstable. She is currently in very stable and good health, which lead me to bring up that I do not desire to head over to my mother's on Christmas to do what we call the front yard exchange of food. She owns 10 dogs in a single floor slab house and they will not let me, or my brother in. My mother upon hearing this called me, and made it very obvious that she feels not only did she do nothing wrong, but I, facing possible termination from my dream job, losing a week's pay due to being put on administrative leave, having been yelled at for the inability to do this task I told her was not something I could do, and now it escalating into an internal family feud. I am still uncertain of my future in the animation industry. I am to the point that screaming into the void feels like a legitimate option for answers. The only thing I know is if I lose my job because of my mother's insistence that I bend to her every demand and desire where it is costing me my job, that I might just vanish from her life. We had an argument like this before and I left the family. I'm not proud to say it, but my mother missed 12 years of my life. I can see to it I'm far enough away she can miss the rest. I wrote this while tired and angry, so I apologize about the grammar and spelling. I am unsure if I should or can upload her reaction to me bringing up the acting CEO, and my direct supervisors. I add here the rough explanation I was given on the smuggling ring defined by the HR reps from the patent company. The act of collecting signatures, company property, and/or memorabilia, discarded or otherwise, to sell to any individual or circumnavigating established procedures to give a non-company individual an unfair advantage/service/information that while not directly harmful to the company and its procedures for personal gain,